for this week, how far do you go back watching Washington film? Is it just like the last 4 games? You watch the whole, 6, 8, 10 games?
During this time, it's funny because you have the whole season, and you want to pick and choose the ones that you think are going to resemble what we do more than anything. But you really take a look at every situation, whether it be red zone, 2-minute, third down, all those things. You try to look at every single one of them. Every guy has a responsibility, and you want them to dive into it as much as possible. So we go back even years sometimes. So whatever we can do to try to get a beat.
So do they look any different under Callahan? Because the numbers are better than they were, at the start of the year.
I would tell you. I mean, they've got a good defense. I mean, they play really hard. They've got a good front. I mean, even looking back earlier in the season, I mean, the truth is especially those front guys and the linebackers. I mean, from a defensive standpoint, they look great. I mean, they've got some really good players up there. So, not much. I mean, besides them playing really well.
When you start your game planning, do you look at like a full game or a couple full games, or do you immediately just go to situations?
Always games. I think that was one of the old school things that I learned from my dad back in the day. Was always the games, and then try to develop the plan as the game flow goes and the reasons why they do certain things. Because sometimes when you jump right into the cut-ups, it doesn't tell the whole picture of why they might have done something. So you want to kind of get a feel for the flow, why that might have been called, why that team was trying to attack them for whatever reason, and then you always try to kind of go back and check everything off of the cut-ups after that.
So, Nathaniel, I'm trying to understand the concept of having an identity, right? Because there have been teams that I've covered that had a very clear-cut identity, and then we've kind of been asking Matt about it the last 2 days. You guys have won offensively in so many different ways, and even the game you lost against Philly, you threw the ball around the yard, you probably do win if Devontae doesn't get hurt. Why is it important to have an identity? Is it because if your matchup with another team's weakness isn't panning out, you know what you can go to, or is it not that important to have something like that?
First, I want to say, as you started that question, I literally had no clue what you were about to ask. It could have literally been anything. But now to get to that question is, what I would say is an identity is one of those things is when you have to hang your hat on something, what do you want to do? And what do all the guys believe in? What's your foundation? What do you set everything up off of? I think that to be able to do as much as possible effectively is always very helpful. Because when you go in, especially towards the end of the year, I mean, sometimes you don't know who you're going to have. And I think that you always have to be able to adjust with who you have on the field, whether it's wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, fullbacks. You always have to be able to adjust. So I think that an identity is kind of some of the foundation concepts that you have, and you have to be able to do them from all different ways, from whether it's different people out there, different formations, things like that. So I think for us, we're lucky because we have a couple guys that can do a lot of different things and allows you to do whatever it takes to win. And I think in the end, that's all that matters. That's what we'd like the identity to be.
So I doubt you're telling the Redskins anything if you answered this, but so what do you think, what is the thing that you guys hang your hat on?
Well, we don't want to let them know that stuff.
They can't tell from watching film what it is because of the different ways you've won, or?
I think the one thing that we always want to be is we want to be balanced. We want to be balanced. We always want to try to establish a run game, and we want to be able to attack however we can within the run game, within the schemes that we do. But I think that we're always going to be trying to work towards what we want that to be. There's always the critical, the things you talk about, outside zone, play action pass. And I think you always want to have counters off of all that stuff. So those are kind of the things you're always trying to aim for, but you still want the ability to do quick game and drop back and all those things, especially with the quarterback that we have.
So in a game like
the Dallas game where you guys were so great with the inside zone, that throws an opponent off, right? They're not going in expecting that.
Yeah, I think you always want to keep the defense guessing. You don't want them to just sit there and say, oh, they're this 100% of the time. I think you still have to have that flexibility to change it up a little bit and be able to take advantage of what a defense presents to you.
As someone who has coached Mercedes Lewis before the Packers, I know you didn't coach him last year here, but How much did you enjoy seeing him get in the end zone, and was that kind of a fitting culmination to the work he's put in with this team this year?
Yeah, no doubt, and that work's not ended yet. I think it's one of those things. I mean, Mercedes represents so much of just this game. For his whole career, how he comes to work every day, how he works out on the field, how he is in the locker room. I mean, he's a guy that you know I've known for a long time, and I love the guy. And you know, anytime you see a guy like that have a chance to get a touchdown and then have to actually really work at it, I mean, and make that play, and Aaron getting it to him. I mean, it was great. It was awesome to watch it execute. And I mean, Mercedes is, wish there's a million guys like that, because he's a very good dude.
Then when you face you have the ball on the 1 yard line, how does that differ from when you face a 4th and 1 and you go for it? Are you typically only going to get goal line defenses down on a goal line situation, or are teams going to just match what you do in those situations? Are they the same?
So the question is the 1 yard line versus
4th and 1.
4th and 1? Definitely when you're on the 1 yard line, defenses will change regardless, because there's obviously not as much field to defend. Out in the field, there's still that capability of whether it be a shot or that 1 yard gain. Every team has a unique style on how they want to defend that, especially on the 1 yard line. Whether you put a smaller grouping out there, a bigger grouping, everybody's going to be very specific in what they do. So every week in those two situations, you want to kind of get the best plan for what that group might do, whether you put a big personnel out or smaller personnel. So it fluctuates so much. I mean, very unique situations. From that 4th and 1 from the 1 is obviously, could potentially be a lot different, especially in the fourth quarter compared to the first quarter. So we're always trying to think of all those scenarios as you add those up.
So like the Giants, I think on 2 of them, they put 2 big guys in your A gaps, I think, 2 really big guys, and did it.
They had some big guys,
twice. Yes. Yeah, I mean, is that what you would expect with a team like that, or you just don't know until you do it?
It depends, because every time sometimes you go in there and they'll try to put a guy over each guard and the center. So it's kind of the philosophy of that defensive coordinator, how he wants to stop stuff, or how he's looking at us and how the things that he might want to stop. So he might think that that's better versus some other teams that do certain things compared to us if we do something different. So it just fluctuates from game to game, and we got to try to find all those little intricacies.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, it looked like, though, that you guys took some shots against the Giants where they were kind of 50-50 balls. You've got a great quarterback who very rarely throws interceptions. How do you marry those two things? Because you obviously don't want to be turning the ball over, but those 50-50 balls can turn into some pretty good plays, too.
Yeah, I think anytime you try to call a legitimate shot down the field, if you look at it just kind of starting from just a pure go, I always have looked at it as about a 40% completion percentage. I mean, that's just kind of the efficiency of that play. So I think that when you have a guy like Aaron, a lot of the time that could go up, both because of his vision and his ability to accurately throw the ball down the field. So I think that it always makes it so you want to kind of do those a little bit more, especially if you've got the ability to check it down to a guy like 33 and 30 and all those guys. I mean, so it just happened to be that we had called some, and we usually call those a lot because those are fun and exciting. We like to get everybody pumped up, and they just happen to work in that situation.
Nathaniel, on red zone, your 70% touchdowns, has there been any single factor that has led to that for you and your success inside?
Yeah, we like to call it the gold zone in our room. But I think it's one of those things. I think the guys have done a really good job executing down there. I think, the starting point is we've been able to run the ball. I think anytime you're able to give a dual threat, if you just try to focus on the pass, that typically hurts you, or just the run. So I think to be able to mix it up, and I think the other thing is how many different people have scored down there. That's something that I think is huge. If you're just trying to attack with one person, they obviously take that away, and you're not feeling great about what you're trying to do. So I think that as long as we can get, the more people that can score a touchdown in the red zone, the more of the field, because once again, it's a smaller field, so we just have to make sure they cover every ounce of it.